On today's show, we hear from Plymouth Public Schools on community conversations and an ekphrastic poem from Elizabeth Birch.
We'll hear more original poetry from Peg Ryan and talk about classes, programs, and upcoming things to do in Plymouth, Pembroke, Kingston, and Duxbury.
We're glad you're here. Let's get started. Derived from the Greek word ekphrasis, meaning description or interpretation, ekphrastic poetry celebrates, describes, and responds to a work of art. Next up, we head to the Plymouth Center for the Arts, where poet Elizabeth Birch read through The Crimson Swirl, her perspective on Crimson Swirl by Mark O'Connell of Pembroke, Massachusetts.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Birch, and I'm reading a poem inspired by Mark O'Connell. I don't know if Mark is here, but Mark has an amazing photograph called Crimson Swirl, won first place in that gallery. And my poem is called Through the Crimson Swirl. The offshore mist of a sober summer swallows mistaken expectations as a small bud within my body swells against its sepals. Unable to trace the teary streams of a self dissipating, my calloused mind peels to reveal the raw underbelly of nothing knowing, new as you will soon be. Chin to the sun, I let my soft petals push up and out, fall like the silk nightgown of a waking soul. We are all pulled from the earth and dying. Come winter, I will forget, wildflower whispers, how I leaned closer, eyes closed, desperate, decayed. The immolation of this season will give way to new growth. Through the crimson swirl of my smolder, I will see your edges unfurl and no longer need my own. Thank you.
If you are looking for an event that everyone in your family, from kids to grandparents, will have a ball participating in, putt your way to the Pembroke Public Library on Friday, February 21st for a round of mini golf in the meeting room. It is sure to be a terrific time for all ages. The library just asked that golfers 7 years old and under be accompanied by a person over the age of 13. No registration is required. The event tees off at 12:30 p.m. and you are welcome to drop in at any time until the event finishes at 4:30.
Pulitzer Prize finalist Lee Hawkins is a journalist and author of the memoir, I Am Nobody's Slave, How Uncovering My Family's History Set Me Free. Join Mr. Hawkins on Tuesday, February 18th at 2 p.m. in a conversation about how the familial legacy of slavery and Jim Crow laws were passed down through generations of his family, manifesting in violence, shorter lifespans, and chronic stress. In this virtual event hosted by the Duxbury Free Library, the author will also relate how ultimately the experience of unearthing, examining, and understanding his ancestral history served to free him, and how genealogical research can be used to both educate and heal. Register now through the library's website to attend what will be a riveting hour-long conversation.
On Thursday, February 27th, the One-Up Games will level up any gamer's afternoon, offering 3 pixel-perfect hours of free video gameplay at the Kingston Public Library. From 3 to 6 p.m., library patrons ages 8 to 18 can drop in and play on today's most popular gaming systems, including VR, all at no cost. No registration is required. Save your energy for the epic boss battles. Video Game Free Play is a program made possible by the generous funding from the Kingston Public Library Foundation.
Next up, we turn the desk over to Superintendent of Plymouth Public Schools Chris Campbell, School Business Administrator Adam Blaisdell, and Plymouth School Committee Secretary Catherine Jackson for a segment of Community Conversations.
Hello, and thank you for being here. I'm Chris Campbell, Superintendent of Plymouth Public Schools. As we look ahead to town meeting this April and prepare to present our proposed budget for FY26, we want to take a moment to express our sincere gratitude to each of you. Your ongoing support is truly the backbone of everything that we do. Together, we're ensuring that our students have the resources, opportunities, and education they need to thrive. The proposed budget for this year reflects thoughtful planning and a commitment to addressing the diverse needs of our students. It's more than just a collection of numbers. It's an investment in the future of our community and the children who will ultimately shape it. So we're going to walk through our FY26 budget, as well as our capital requests and a special article. But before I do, just want to introduce Kathy Jackson from our school committee, who's also the secretary to the school committee currently, and Adam Blaisdell, who's our school business administrator. So thank you both.
Thanks for having us.
Being here.
Thanks
so
for having
we're
me.
really looking forward to town meeting this April. So Adam, if we could just start for those who don't understand how funding is determined, the process for our viewers, kind of walk through what it typically looks like and how we got to where we are for this year.
Sure, most definitely. So we really first by having some conversations with the town. We talked to the town manager, we talked to the town finance director, and we really start there. Our town finance director really works at determining what new sources of revenue are coming into the town through the taxes, and making an estimate of Chapter 70 money, which is education funding from the state. A lot of times we look at level funding that because there really hasn't been a huge increase over the past couple of years. This year we did have an increase. So really from that point, the town finance director really looks at what monies are available for the budgets. And then we look at typically a 61% split, 39% split between the school and the town. And then we have some conversations with the select board, the school committee, and really come to some finite decisions in regards to how that money is split and come to an agreement with that 61-39 split.
Yeah, I know with that 61-39, it's been about 10 years at least consistently that's been about the proportionate share between school and municipal sides. That also includes, my understanding, not just the funding that goes towards the Plymouth Public Schools, but education in general.
It does. It involves increases for liability insurance that we hold for all of our buildings and any automobiles that we have. It also goes to healthcare and dental, pension assessment. So it's all the different factors that come into our budget. So it's not necessarily the money that you would see that the school committee presents, but it also includes the additional funds that the town holds on their side. But those are still costs that for the school as well.
So when you see a school committee proposed budget of, say, 127 million, but there's a larger number that's being presented to the town, that's what that difference is. It's all the other educational dollars that aren't necessarily a part of our operational budget.
Correct.
Right. So you talked about like that process. So we start that process with our cost center managers, our principals, our coordinators and directors, with our school committee, with our select board. How did that start this year, and where were we in terms of reaching that number that we were provided in terms of revenues? If you could talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So we really look at our salaries. Like salaries are a huge cost driver. So we really make sure looking at what are our salaries for all of our staff to make sure that we maintain hopefully the same level of service for our kids. We want to make sure that's primary in everything we do. Then we look at all of our contracts that we have, bus contracts, software contracts, electricity, all of our utilities. We look at all of those and really come up with a number of what that comes out to be. We look at creative ways of funding. So we look at, okay, is there a way that we can split fund something with a grant rather than fully fund it through a budget? And then we kind of look at where are we with our budget. Well, this year we were about $520,000 short as we look at FY26. So with that, we're going to look at where are our greatest needs. We really examine class sizes. We look at are there any utilities that we can save on? Where can we save money without necessarily affecting our students? And if we get to the point where we've looked at everything, then we really look at staffing and look at maybe that's where the $520,000 comes from. But we've been really doing a lot of that behind the scenes and really looking at, but there are no final decisions at this point in time.
Yeah, so I know when we first presented budgets and we were working with the school committee, our principal coordinators and directors, that the difference between the town guideline and our original budgets was a little over 800 lower, right? And I know that through some creativity with revolving funds, you were able to make a recommendation to kind of bring that number down to 520.
Yes, we did. And some of that was looking at a lot of our custodians work in our cafeterias. Cafeteria funds are a separate fund that can't necessarily be part of the budget, but we looked at our custodians really work in the cafeterias, cleaning cafeterias, supporting the students in the cafeteria. So we were looking, and we got approval from the state to split fund some of our custodians by using those cafeteria dollars to help reduce that from that 800 to about 500,000.
And I know this is the first time we've done that, but in years past we have not done that. But it really required us to go before school committee with a revised job description. So I don't know, a couple months back, I know that the school committee was presented with a job description that included that revision to include that responsibility from our custodians in food services. Correct?
Yeah. So one of the things that I think that we do a really good job of as a district is looking at how can we address our financial needs without putting the needs on the taxpayers, but also not doing something to affect the students as much as we possibly can, with also realizing that it's super important to retain good quality teaching staff and good quality employees that are not just our teachers but our other staff. So I think by looking at ways that we can do that through policy, we're really excelling at trying to move things forward.
Absolutely. I think, looking at the proposed budget for FY26, it reflects a 4.8% increase over our current year. When you look at other communities right now, that's on the lower side, and you see a lot of talk about reductions and things that are being done to bring that down. But I think we've done that over time in our commitment and collaboration with our educators. And speaking to, regarding contracts, that's one thing that we prioritize going into this fiscal year for sure.
Yeah. So the teachers are the backbone of our community, really. I mean, they're the ones that make our students successful, and our students are our future taxpayers and our future contributors to our town. So without supporting the teachers, we're not really supporting the town.
Absolutely. And we have over, I think, 51% of our licensed educators actually reside in the town of Plymouth. So we're actually, investing in them as well, our own residents, and we're well over that number when you look at all of our support staff and every other employee that works in our district. Mm-hmm. Adam, can you speak to some of the other drivers? So contracts, obviously, I think we've made a correction, try to be more competitive with our local communities regarding our contracts, which is important because that is the backbone of our system as our teachers to support our kids. What are some of the other drivers to that 4.8%? Sure.
As you mentioned, salaries and contracts was a huge contributor to that. I think it was a little over 6%, maybe almost 7% to our increase. But some of the other pieces are transportation. As we know, in this time we've been talking about transportation quite a bit. We spent about $11 million in transportation. But transportation for special education students and regular education students, it was a huge increase that we see every year. Utilities, electricity was a major increase this year, and we're looking at ways where we can possibly reduce that in the future. Working with the town in order to looking at solar canopies to try and bring that number down and kind of be and we're seeing those at our own homes as well, to tell you the truth, with electricity. Special education services, we've seen a huge increase. Tuitions are up a little under 4% this coming year, but that builds and builds. A couple years ago, we saw that at 14% of an increase for our tuitions. So special education tuitions are an increase as well. Those are some of the drastic ones. We're not seeing it really in supplies because we've really cut back on our supplies as much as we possibly can. So supplies, really, we're not seeing that.
Yeah, so regarding special education, so we talk about those outside contracts, contracted services really for special education for students that may not be educated within the community. Our population is pretty plateaued. We've declined. This is my 17th year, which is hard to believe, in Plymouth, and we've seen, and you've been here longer, Adam, but we've seen a decline in our enrollment. We're just around 7,000, give or take 100 or so students on any given day, or in the last few years. So we've seen that decline. But as I said to people, when you go into our schools, you would expect to see empty classrooms, but you don't. You don't see that. And that's because we've invested in our special education programs, and getting back to, how do we support our students within the community. That's one thing that I think we've made an investment in here in Plymouth. So about 10 years ago, we started investing in programs for students with more complicated profiles and needs, so as not to have to educate students outside of the district. So consequently, we have a great continuum of services from preschool all the way through high school and the 4 years thereafter for some of our students. So let's talk about that a little bit and what that looks like.
Yeah. As a former principal, having the students in our buildings, having these programs in our buildings was wonderful for the kids, because they got to stay in their local community, so they got to build friendships with the kids, and also on a financial end of it, it saves us quite a lot of money. For us to, I think last year or the year before, we figured out that if we were to send those students out of district, it would cost us about another $9 million to send those students out of district, and that's really not what we want. We want those kids just for themselves to stay in the community. I mean, that's priority number one, and priority number two is financial. But keeping those kids in our school has been wonderful. But that would add to our out-of-district costs if we didn't have those programs as well.
So to your point, it's really great that we can invest in the students in their neighborhood schools many times, but within their community. And it does, fiscally, in terms of making priorities, investing in our students that require that support, but also in a way that's actually reducing our overall costs, whether it be for the tuitions for programs, but also transportation, which is very costly too.
I think inclusivity helps all students, not just the students who are in the sub-separate programs that would potentially have to go to another separate school. I think we all benefit from that type of community. And I also would say that I don't think that everybody understands that we are required by law to educate these students. So it's not just something that we are doing. It does set Plymouth apart, and it does really benefit us, but it's also something that we would need to provide an education and transportation. So finding ways like this in order to benefit everybody, I think, is a huge feather in our cap.
Absolutely. Educate them in the least restrictive environment, which
Yes.
we're able to do too. One thing I want to touch upon quickly, because we're getting short on time, is our preschool enrollment. While we've seen a decline, and it's related to special education, but I think since COVID, we've seen a 41% increase in students being referred through preschool. So that's something that, in terms of space, something that we need to look at, but we've also been very creative with some grant funds to provide education to students in their private preschools and do itinerant support to that. So again, another creative way to provide services in the community without, increasing the tax burden and the cost to us. So we've been very fortunate to receive 2 grants, around $500,000 each grant for the last couple of years, and hopefully we'll receive that state grant moving forward as well. We've talked about transportation. I think our facilities, to kind of talk about capital needs, our district has really focused on improving and maintaining our facilities. Can we elaborate a little bit about that investment, what we're doing, and some of the capital projects that we're looking at?
Sure. Our facilities team is great. I mean, they do a lot with really, honestly and truly, a small budget. When you walk into any of our buildings, some of even our oldest buildings, they really look great. So they really work on trying to make sure that those buildings are well maintained. This year, we're going to see an Article 19. We're going to see a feasibility and schematic design request for Cold Spring and Hedge Elementary School. We're going to be looking at repairing HVAC district-wide. We're going to be looking at making sure our roofs are up to snuff district-wide. We're going to be looking at making sure that we're being preventative as well. So we have a drain over at North High School to prevent water from going in those buildings. So we're trying to really look at safety and really maintaining the envelope of our buildings.
So right, I mean, we're prioritizing those capital projects to maintain the integrity of our buildings. And Article 19, if we could just touch upon that briefly for a little bit, is something that's critically important, because we're not only looking to prioritize our capital projects moving forward, but really take an aging infrastructure of our elementary schools, which are 50, 70, 100 plus years old, and trying to prioritize some projects moving forward. But Article 19 is an article that would allow us to work with the state to look at a feasibility, as you said, for a potential consolidation of an elementary school down the road, which I think is again another responsible way of trying to maximize our resources.
I mean, I think there's a lot of things to consider, but I also think, having a school in that community that's still walkable and that provides resources that are comparable to our other schools is hugely important. And as an aside, for the amount of work that would need to be done to some of those buildings, we would be above the 30% mark. And when you go above 30% of the cost of the building, you're required to make a building ADA compliant. And in the concept of these two schools, it's not really possible to do that with the envelope as it is right now. So building a new school or considering building a new school is actually the fiscally responsible way of handling that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. As town meeting approaches and we wrap up, what do we hope the residents understand about the FY26 budget and why their support is important?
I really think it has to do with making sure that we're supporting our kids. As Ms. Jackson already said, the kids are our future. And obviously we want to make sure that we have strong schools, we build strong students, and really make sure that we are looking at every piece of our budget to try and see if there's savings that we can make within our budget, but also making sure that the kids are getting what they deserve and the education that they need.
We all understand that times are tough for everybody, that costs are going up for everybody, schools and taxpayers included. I think that the school district has done a wonderful job in looking at every aspect in order to be responsible not only to the students but also to the taxpayers. It's important to provide a good quality education. That's what brings people here. That's what drives up our home values, the quality of our community for the individual taxpayer. But it's also what funds our future and our students, which is also, just as important. And I think we've done a really good job in balancing that, and hopefully people can see the hard work that went into that.
Absolutely, being responsible to the taxpayer, but also responsive to the needs of our students at the same time, which is great. So I know that for our viewers, if they want to get more information, they could go to the School Business Administrators page on plymouth.k12.ma.us. And Adam has a whole page with not only what we talked about today, but other projects, capital expenditures, the lists goes on and on. So there's a lot of information that people could seek, and always contact our office if you have any questions or concerns too. So as we've tried to highlight today, the proposed FY26 budget balances the immediate needs of our students, the long-term sustainability of our programs, and the fiscal conditions of our community. Whether it's expanding support for our growing population of English learners or investing in critical facility maintenance, we're ensuring Plymouth Public Schools remain a place where students can grow, learn, and thrive. We appreciate your commitment to Plymouth Public Schools, and we look forward to continuing our work together with the community to provide exceptional education opportunities for our students. To review anything mentioned in this video in more detail, please visit our school business page at the link displayed on your screen. Thank you for listening.
Wednesday, February 12th, the Duxbury Senior Center invites you to a morning at the 1909 Wright Building for Dux Talks. This beautiful space houses the research library and archives of the Duxbury Rural and Historical Society. Carolyn Ravenscroft, archivist and historian for DRHS, will be on site to talk about the array of artifacts and historical treasures preserved within the walls of this recently renovated historical building. Registration is required as there is a finite number of spots available. Meet the group at 11 a.m. at 147 St. George Street next to the Percy Walker Pool, or call the front desk of the Senior Center now to reserve one of the limited number of seats on a bus that will pick up and drop off at the Senior Center. The talk will be an hour long.
Doris Day said, "The really frightening thing about middle age is that you'll grow out of it." And then comes retirement. If you're heading that way, join the Pembroke Council on Aging on Monday, February 24th for a free AARP presentation for that time of life when you stop living at work and start working at just living. This retirement planning talk will center on budgeting, debt resolution, and saving strategies to support your golden years so that you can focus on enjoying your well-earned time off. The presentation starts at 6 p.m. and will be an hour long. Register by calling 781-829-3659.
OutNet is a local LGBTQ+ professional networking and social group that hosts vibrant mixers with the goal of creating opportunities for people in the LGBTQ+ community to expand their professional and social circles, all while enjoying delicious cocktails and inspired conversation. Come meet and mingle with a diverse group of local queer professionals, community members, retirees, and residents at the next event on Wednesday, February 12th from 5 to 7 p.m. in the Speakeasy Room at G-Pub in Plymouth. Spread the word. It is free to get in, and there will be a raffle and a cash bar. Allies are welcome too. G-Pub is located at 101A Carver Road.
Get on board with woodworking. The Duxbury Senior Center is offering a 4-day woodworking workshop at Duxbury High School beginning Tuesday, February 18th. Whether you're a novice or skilled woodsmith, you're invited to bring a project you're currently working on or try your hand at a simple or intermediate project provided by instructor and Duxbury High School educator Matt Files. The class will take place in the Duxbury High School woodworking shop from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., and the cost for materials is only $25 per person. Sign up soon. There are only 15 spaces available, and you would not want to miss it.
The Kingston Public Library's local history collections hold a significant assemblage of historical postcards and holiday cards in its collection. This archived ephemera provides a unique window back into the town's past through images of Kingston, as well as notes and cards sent to and from residents of the town throughout history. Library archivist Nick Katulis will be bringing a relative sample of the varied collection for an enlightening presentation about the collection of Kingston Council on Aging on Wednesday, February 12th at 1 p.m. The event is free and requires registration. Visit the Senior Center or give them a call at 781-585-0511.
As part of the planned redesign for downtown Plymouth, a priority is the implementation of climate-ready solutions included in Plymouth's Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. This project will encompass 3,000 linear feet, stretching from Main Street Extension to Samoset Street. The town is seeking input from you, its residents and business owners, to ensure equitable outcomes among all who have a stake in and love this area. Express your thoughts, ideas, and concerns at the Downtown Resiliency Project Community Workshop on Saturday, February 8th at 10 a.m. in the Phalo Room of the Plymouth Public Library. The library is located at 132 South Street.
Working on the pottery wheel is often a meditative act of learning how to place the experience of process over product, being present in the moment, practicing patience, embracing flaws, and finding beauty in imperfections. Yeah, it's more than a lump of clay on a spinning disc. It's deep. Are you ready to dive in? Melissa Kowal, owner of the Biebel Art Center, will be teaching an adult pottery wheel workshop on Thursday, February 13th at the Kingston Recreation Center in the Reed Community Building Lower Hall. Starting at 5 p.m., this 2-hour class will teach about pottery and give instruction on how to use the pottery wheel. Ceramics will be in white clay finished with a clear glaze and ready for pickup about 4 weeks after the class. Cost is $85 to residents and just $10 more for non-residents. Sign up through the Rec Center website, and since art can get messy, wear clothes that can get messy too.
Newly elected State Representative Michelle Badger will join State Representative Kathy Lenatra to get you up to date with the state when they visit the Plymouth Center for Active Living on Thursday, February 20th. From that date on, our reps will be visiting the center together every third Thursday, so you have a monthly opportunity to ask questions, express concerns, and get direct updates from the State House. This month's focus will be on the functions of their office and how they can best support you as their constituents. There is no cost to attend, and the conversation starts at 10:30 a.m. Registration is not required, but is always appreciated.
For so many of us, our first job was babysitting. If you have an ambitious kid, age 10 or up, interested in learning how to become a skilled babysitter, the Pembroke Recreation Department is offering a 1-day babysitting course on Saturday, February 15th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. This 3-hour class will provide information on child development, teach basic first aid, fire safety and prevention, and provide an overview of the responsibilities that come with babysitting. Additionally, there will be instruction on playing with younger children and some hands-on training on how to care for infants. Let the diapering begin. The class will be held at the Pembroke Community Center. Register online at the Rec Center's website. If your babysitting hopeful is unable to attend this class, it will be offered again on Saturday, April 26th. Questions? Call 781-293-3249.
Whether you're a seasoned watcher or a casual seeker, fans of our feathered friends can flock together for a family-friendly birdwatching stroll at Tidmarsh Wildlife Sanctuary on Saturday, February 22nd. Wander the sanctuary at a relaxed pace and hopefully get a peep at some of the area's beautiful birds. The walk starts at 10 a.m. and will be most enjoyable to people ages 8 years old and up. Intro to Birding is a free walk made possible by the America the Beautiful initiative.
Next up is poet Peg Ryan in a reading of her original work.
Hello, my name is Peg Ryan, and this is my first open mic. And after listening to the other poems, I feel like a third grader sitting amidst university students. My first poem is called The Journey. The journey is long and it may take years. Although very worthwhile, it is not without tears. It may be costly, or with luck may be free. To enter this magical place, you will see. The path is windy and filled with flowers, but then again there will be days with showers. You must begin with an open mind, follow the path, and don't look behind. For the magic you miss in the blink of an eye cannot be recaptured, although you may try. The wonder is there just a step away, in a newborn babe or a child at play. I have traveled this path for a very long while. How the wonder and magic have made me smile. The warmth of the sun has enveloped my soul. When I look at the stars, I see pieces of gold. I have been lured by the beauty of the deep blue sea, and the wonder of it all has cast a spell on me. You may look at my path in a different way, and you may not relate to what I feel or say. Where your path leads is for you to decide. Should you choose my path, I will be by your side, to walk with you and to show that I care. The journey is worthwhile if there's someone to share. How fast can I read? The next one is Fences, and it is from my own experience. There were no fences on my street. We ran with abandon, all with bare feet. Our houses were neat and all in a row, and there were so many yards where we could go. We played hide and seek and drank make-believe tea. There was nowhere else we wanted to be. But then we grew older and spread our wings and surrendered to a world of other things. I moved to a neighborhood quite different from mine, where the Kellys, the Walshes, and the Rileys intertwined. My two boys played with friends who lived on the street. My life as I saw it was happy and complete. Then one summer day, a new family moved to town, and the change in the neighborhood was profound. A fence had been raised, though not a visible one, and the new family of 4 realized the shun. The Sunnis were not welcome in this Irish hood. They were from Cuba and so misunderstood. I invited the family to dinner one night and soon discovered the pain of their plight. For I was now moved to the opposite end of the invisible fence that I could not mend. And I was reminded of the days of innocence and joy, of running barefoot through the grass and sharing a toy. I just have one. This is a happy one. I am here with the boss of our crowd. We have a writers group in Pine Hills, and my friend Johnny is the leader, and she has taught me an awful lot. But the story I'm telling you is my husband died years ago, left me with 2 little boys, a house, a dog, and a boat. And the dog died, the kids moved on, I kept the boat for 45 years. So I just sold it a short while ago. This is, "Oh Captain, My Captain." I heard something say and it is about an inanimate object that we had to write about. This inanimate object is my boat. I heard someone saying that spring is here, and as they took off my cover, it was perfectly clear that the quiet of winter under a bucket of snow will soon give way to voices as the spring winds blow. My people have arrived and in work clothes are dressed. They have only one short time to make me look my best. My captain has been with me for a very long time, and she treats me gently while fastening my line. Her grandson has learned to take care of my parts. Now he always takes credit when my old engine starts. I'm counting the days before I slip into the sea, sailing to our summer home, my 2 captains and me. Maybe I moved to 4th grade.
Middle and high school kids looking to do good, get crafty with other teens and tweens, and earn a community service hour credit are invited to meet at the Pembroke Public Library on Thursday, February 27th at 4 p.m. You'll be creating handmade greeting cards to be distributed to hospitalized children following the guidelines of Cards for Hospitalized Kids, a 501c3 charitable nonprofit dedicated to uplifting the spirits of young ones in children's hospitals across America. Since the group's inception, over 500,000 joyful, handcrafted cards have made it into the hands of little ones across 50 states. This drop-in event will be in the meeting room of the library until 5 p.m. No registration is required, just your readiness to show up and craft some kindness. And that, my friends, wraps this episode of The Local Scene this week. Thank you for watching.
If you have a story or event that you'd like people to know about, email us at story@thelocalscene.media.
And if you live or work in Plymouth, Pembroke, Kingston, or Duxbury and would like to have your own show or podcast, you should. Email community@thelocalscene.media to find out about our free production services and training for community members.
We thank our patrons Tiny & Sons, Quintal Brothers, and Squinty's Pizza for supporting our mission of community in action through media.
We'll be back next week with more of what's good and good to know in our community.
Until then, we'll see you on The Local Scene. For more of what's good and good to know on the South Shore of Massachusetts, hit the subscribe button. And thank you for watching.